This is our invocation, and Police Chief Gary Smith will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thanks, Mayor.
Good to see you, sir.
Let's pray together. Now, Lord, we come before you this evening at the beginning of this City Council meeting. And Father, I thank you for our City Council and for those who work for our city in these leadership positions, giving guidance and direction to the work of our city for its future, for its health, for its vitality. We thank you for their willingness to give of their time and their efforts and their energy to serve all of us together. That's a daunting task because it's seldom do they make most people happy, and people who are unhappy tend to complain about it. And so I pray for thick skin for them and clear vision about what they need to do as they take the best interest of this city to their heart and to their decision making, and guide them in that process. And Father, regular scheduled meetings are a part of that process, and so we ask that you would be with them through this evening. And Father, for each item on the agenda, for the discussion and the work together to help this city be the best that it can be. It's in Jesus Christ's name that we pray. Amen. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we were saying the Pledge of Allegiance, I couldn't help but think of where we are right now in our nation, and knowing that early voting has already begun, and that I certainly hope everyone has on their schedule to vote, or remember that on November the 2nd, we have an election in this nation, and that everyone will exercise their right, and I think privilege and opportunity to cast a ballot as they see fit, in keeping with their wishes and their desires for the direction of our government. So, Chief, thanks for the pledge this evening, and to Pastor Knox for that prayer. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a proclamation and special recognition. This is Community Planning Month in October, and I'd like to ask our brand new Planning Director, Brian Mabry, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Planning Department staff, if you'll please come forward and let us make this presentation and recognize you for the great work you do for our community. And Autumn. Is Autumn here? Autumn? What?
Even newer.
They do all the work.
Spoken like a true leader. Well, it's great to have all of you here and have this privilege of recognizing the work that you do. Alan and Marvin, as volunteer citizens of our community, the service that you provide is significant. We know and understand how much time that you spend in doing the preliminary work for all of the items that come before planning and zoning, and the countless hours that you spend in preparation and during those meetings. And for that, we express our great appreciation to you. You are a very, very vital part of the growth and prosperity of this community. Thank you for that. And to our great staff, who we continuously hear as we talk to people like HEB or people that are in our community trying to develop, and their comments are always, I wish every place was like the city of Temple. It's so easy to work with you guys, and you guys do so much for us, and I can't tell you how proud that makes each and every one of us when we're out in the community and we get to hear comments like that. And so thank you for that effort. And so with that, let me present this proclamation in recognition of Community Planning Month, and say to each and every one of you, thank you for all you do, and we recognize you for that work in this proclamation in recognition of this. Whereas change is a constant and affects Temple's neighborhoods, parks, trails, commercial, and industrial areas. Whereas community planning and plans, including the IH-35 overlay, TMED, and the award-winning plan Choices 08, can help manage this change in a way that provides better choices for how people work and live. Whereas community planning provides an opportunity for all residents, property owners, and homeowner associations to be meaningfully involved in making choices that determine the future of their community. Whereas the full benefits of planning requires public officials and citizens, including the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Zoning Board of Adjustment, who understand, support, and demand excellence in planning and plan implementation. Whereas the American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, which includes Brian Mabry, AICP, Planning Director, and they endorse National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions sound planning and plan implementation make to quality of our settlements and environment. Whereas the celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the participation and dedication of the members of Temple's Planning and Zoning Commission, including Jack Barton, Ashley Dusick-Williams, Marvin Hurd, Mike Pilkington, Bert Pope, Chair Ally Talley, James Stotts, Will Sears, and Vice Chair Derek Martin, and other members who have contributed their time and expertise to the improvement of the City of Temple, Texas. Whereas we recognize the many valuable contributions made by the professional Temple Planning and Zoning Department, Mary Maxfield, Tammy Lyerly, Leslie Evans, and Brian Mabry, AICP, and extend our heartfelt thanks for the continued commitment to public services by these professionals. Now therefore I, William A. Jones III, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim October of 2010 as Community Planning Month in the City of Temple, Texas, in conjunction with the celebration of National Community Planning Month. In testimony whereof I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this, the 21st day of October of 2010. Brian, thanks for all you do. Thanks for your leadership. Thank you for your team. And we look forward to continued great work.
All right. Thank you very much,
sir.
sir.
You bet. Thanks. Any comments you'd like to make?
No, just I thank the staff and the commission, as always, for all their help and support.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for sticking around this evening for those who have normally gone home. Next item on the agenda is an opportunity for public comment, and normally during this part of the meeting we have citizens from the community get up and speak on items that are of importance to them, but tonight we have no one signed up to speak, so we'll skip and move right into the consent agenda. Item 4, all items under this section consent are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the Council on any item, it may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of a council member and will be considered separately. Ladies and gentlemen, this is item 4, A through P this evening, and I think we're going to pull item K for a presentation. And are there any other items, Council, that you'd like to have removed for consideration? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval of consent agenda item A through P, less item K.
Motion to approve, with the exception of item K.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion is second. Any further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Rowland.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 4K is a second reading. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agricultural district to single-family 1 district on a approximately .23 acre tract of land in the John Cummings Survey, abstract number 178, located at 8566 Little Mexico Road. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, sir. I'm pulling up the presentation. This is the second reading for this case, and there were some, I guess, unresolved questions related to the airport at the last reading of this case on October 7th. of this year. The property, or the purpose of the rezoning is to establish a single-family dwelling on approximately .23 acres or 10,000 square feet. The lot is too small for the agricultural zoning district to have a house on it, and so that is why the rezoning is being requested. It's about 200 feet from the airport property line. A foundation has been framed up for the house, but they're not doing work on the house at this point until the proper zoning approval has been approved and the building permit has actually been approved. One more thing, the foundation, if this zoning case is approved, the foundation does meet the setbacks for single-family one, so there wouldn't be any need for any modifications of the foundation or anything of that nature. Just wanted to touch on the airport stuff for you, the airport-related aspects of the case, just so they're clear. This is an aerial of the subject property with the yellow border around it. The red line is the airport property line. The kind of cleared away ground you see at the bottom within the red triangle is the light approach, where the lights begin to guide an airplane down into the airport landing facility. One of the documents that we have is the Reinvestment Zone Aviation Campus Planning Document, and it recommends no new residential development within that area shown in the light blue line around the airport. The reason being the noise levels and just the traffic of the airport as it continues to expand. This planning document tries to anticipate that and have as few land use conflicts as possible for a growing airport. And so the recommendation in the plan of this document is to limit any kind of residential or growth of that nature within that boundary. There were let me go back and give you one more piece of information. There was a request for information from a council member about the approach slope for an airplane at the airport. And that is the protected area that's kind of slope-shaped that a airplane or that a building cannot be built above. Because it could potentially interfere with an airplane trying to land on the runway. For the area that the proposed building, the proposed house is, as you see on the aerial, that protected area is after 45 feet in height. So anything higher than 45 feet would be not allowed due to the protected area that is required for an airport landing area like this. The proposed house is only one story, so it would be beneath that 45-foot zone that it would need to be within. So, if this is approved and a house is built, it's not going to be encroaching into an area in height that it shouldn't be. For the Planning and Zoning Commission, the staff sent out notification, and 3 surrounding property owners support the change in zoning, and those are shown on your map. Staff did recommend denial, though, of the rezoning request due to not complying with the future land use and character map and the not complying with land use policy 17 related to incompatible uses near the airport. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission at its October 4th meeting did recommend approval 8-0 of this case, and of course you at your most recent hearing did recommend approval on first reading of this case. And I could try to answer any questions that the council might have on this case if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Avery. Council questions? Mr. Janczak, did that answer your question relative to Clyde? It did. Yeah. Questions or comments?
I guess I would just comment if I could, Mr. Mayor. It was I that voiced the comment at the last meeting, certainly concerning the noise contours around the airport, and this particular property that is located 2,500 feet off virtually the exact end of the landing approach to the main runway of our airport. And not that it will be a hindrance to airplanes landing, but any kind of aircraft, whether it be a Learjet or a Cessna or a helicopter, will come over this property at the altitude of about 50 feet and on their approach to landing. And as well, the pilot control lighting that the airplanes use to land at night, those big strobe lights that guide you into the airport, the very first light is virtually across the street from this house. Now, I realize now that we've been covered that we have issued a permit for this, and I think it's certainly would not want to deny this family their home, but I think it's important for the family to recognize and for us to recognize there's a lot of airplanes that are going to be landed at our airport, and day and night. That's a 24-hour capable airport, and those lights will be on at night, and there will be airplanes landing at all times, and it might not be a good place to live. Not that it's dangerous. That's not what I'm implying at all. It's just not going to be very comfortable. And that was my concerns from the last meeting. I would, given the fact that they have applied for and paid for a permit, and they have started construction, I would tell you I'm supportive of our voting to approve these folks to build their home, but I guess at this stage I would be adamantly against any further development of single-family residences in there just because of not being an appropriate place to build a house because of the noise and the lights and everything else that goes on at that end of the runway. Unless there's other comments, I would make a motion that we approve item 4K to allow these people to build their home.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. My only comment relates to knowing this one moved forward and this particular individual and his family have lived there for a long time in very close proximity, but yet they didn't know they were in the city limits. What can we do, and this is a just general question, whether David or Jonathan or Brian, what can we do to make sure that anybody in that entire area that we showed in that one map know that that's going to be an area where they're not going to receive a permit to build in the future if that's the council's position? What can we do to make sure people are aware of that? I mean, this guy thought all he had to do was go to the county and the county would give him the authority to go forward, yet he was in the city limits. How do we head that off? How do we, from having somebody come and say, golly, I got my foundation all done or about ready to go and found out I'm in the city limits?
Yes. Mayor, we'll give it some additional thought on what we can do in terms of trying to educate, inform, and communicate to those who are in our city that they are in our city, and the permits and the processes that follow as a result of such. The first thing that comes to my mind, and I'll certainly look to Brian or Autumn or Jonathan for some assistance or additional ideas, but again, we'll try to see if we can't come up with multiple ways to convey. But the first thought I had was in those areas that might be on the outer limits of our city limits, where folks might have the impression or an understanding that they're not, they do seem to have some understanding that they may need to go to the county for some sort of permit or process. And I think one of the things we can do is just continue to have a good, strong working relationship with the county and the county offices that those individuals would go to for services and approvals in county-related development, as well as our health district for septic systems and those kinds of things. So maybe between those entities, the health district offices as well as the county offices and our office, if the three of us are in pretty good communication about applications, permits, things that come through, that'll help us in the future, and we'll try to make sure those relationships are strong, the communication lines are open.
Very good. Appreciate that. Any other comments, questions? We have a motion and a second. There's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna. Aye. Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 5 is the third and final reading, public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance granting Richard Curtis, DBA Good Times Carriage Rides, a non-exclusive franchise for 5 years to operate horse-drawn carriages upon the public streets and highways of the city of Temple. Mr. Gray?
Mayor, members of the council, this is the third reading as required by our city charter for a citywide franchise, in this case to operate a horse-drawn carriage franchise within city limits. This is a renewal of a franchise. The first one was granted in 1995, and it's been renewed since then. It's a 5-year agreement. We've complied with all the requirements of our charter in terms of advertising in the newspaper and 3 readings of this ordinance, and be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you, sir. Questions for Mr. Green? There being none, I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. So, public hearing for the franchise for the Good Times Carriage Rides. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure, third and final reading.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Further discussion? Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Third reading and public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance granting Temple Transportation, Inc., doing business as Yellow Cab, a non-exclusive franchise for 5 years to provide taxi cab service for the city of Temple. Mr. Green?
Mayor and members of the council, like similar the previous item, this is a third and final reading of an ordinance that would grant a franchise to use city streets for a taxi cab franchise. The applicant is Temple Transportation. They do business in Temple as Yellow Cab. This is, again, a renewal of a franchise. Just some few details about the franchise. The compensation we receive is in the form of a vehicle permit fee for each vehicle each year, both for a driver's permit and for the vehicle. We do examine the applicant's driving record, we inspect vehicles, and be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Questions? Council? If not, this requires a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, third and final reading. Your pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second for approval of the franchise agreement for Yellow Cab, non-exclusive. Madam Secretary?
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 7 is a second reading. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from agricultural to single-family 1 district on approximately a 10-acre tract of land in the Maximo Moreno Survey, abstract number 14, in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, located on the north side of West FM 93, adjacent to and west of Ridgewood Estates. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a brief review for the second reading presentation for this proposed rezoning from agricultural to single-family 1. Staff has worked with the applicant to consider doing a plan development for the property to limit the density and the number of lots, single-family lots that could be built on the property. The applicant has elected to not go that route and to request a straight rezoning for single-family 1, which allows 7,500 square foot lots on this size property that could equal out to approximately 45, 46 lots if maxed out and built to its full potential, which is fairly different, significantly different from the density of the adjacent Ridgewood Estates subdivision, which is about 2 dwelling units per acre, while if maxed out with its building as many lots as possible in the 10 acres, would create a 4.6 dwelling units per acre density on this subject property. The property is designated estate residential on the future land use and character map, which single-family 1 doesn't comply with, although there are other other subdivisions in the area that have the single-family one zoning designation that have the same future land use and character designation as well. The thoroughfare plan is shown on the screen right now. Arctic Bluff is a collector, and FM 93 is an arterial, and Lakeview Road, which leads into the property, is a local street. If built out to maximum lots that the property could support, you would statistically have about 460 vehicle trips added per day through Lakewood or Lakeview Lane, as you can see on the visual on the screen. That red portion would have that many extra trips added to it before the street, diverged, where there could be different options for a driver to go on. The notice of the rezoning was sent out for the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to surrounding property owners, 3 of whom sent in approval letters and 3 of whom sent in disapproval letters, and those are shown on the screen. The applicant is representing that they will not build to the maximum capacity of lots that are possible for the 10 acres. But we, as a staff, just kind of have to look to the densest case possible. And without a planned development designation, there's no guarantee that larger lots will be built, as are shown in kind of a conceptual drawing that's on the screen now that the applicant has supplied. If you approve a straight rezoning, you're not approving this drawing that's on the screen. You're just approving the single-family one, 7,500 square foot minimum lot size. And there's no legal binding requirement that larger lots be built, as you would see on the screen. So with that, the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of this case 7-1 at its most recent hearing, from agricultural to single-family one. However, staff recommended denial of the rezoning for the reasons shown on the screen, that not complying with the future land use and character map, the thoroughfare plan, and the public sewer lines not being currently available to serve the property, and the applicant not proposing at this time septic system usage. The applicant does have a presentation to make during the public hearing, or when he has a chance to, just as a reminder, but at this point I could answer any questions that the council might have on this case.
Thank you, Mr. Mabry. Is the way it's proposed with an SF1 and 46 lots, could he put septic in there? Or are those lots too small for septic system?
The 7,500 square foot lots would be too small.
Okay, so if, in fact, has to have sewer to do SF1 in this.
Correct.
And I remember that's his desire, but
yes, sir.
Again, with no certainties from either party or a level of trust, then we just have to take it at face value, and if there's no sewer, then it doesn't work. And that's the reason for your recommendation of denial?
That's part of it, yeah. Yes, sir, that's part of it.
Great. Okay. Other questions of staff on this one?
Have you seen any designs of any proposed sewer lines, or?
Yes, and the applicant might be planning on addressing that, but there have been some drawings from an engineer showing some proposed routes for proposed sewer lines. Nothing official that I'm aware of has been submitted to do that, but it has been thought about.
Okay, so that would really be part of the planning process and not just a zoning change?
Yes, sir.
So he has done work in those arenas?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Other questions? Mr. Rendon, did you want to make a presentation?
Ready?
Okay, yeah, because this is not a public hearing tonight, so it'd just be an opportunity for you to give us an update and
We'll do that.
Okay.
Brian, do you have
I think it should. Yeah, just that's forward, that's back.
just a quick summary of where we are.
State name, address for record.
Sorry about that. Martin Down, 413 Downing Street, Belton, and representing Stellar Development Company, and discussing the 10-acre just east of Ridgewood, which we are now calling Highland Park. All right. Very briefly, Uniform Plan of Development is our purpose, preservation of property values. We intend to have restrictions for the homes. We like to preserve natural beauty of the property, prohibit erection of poorly designed structures, and to secure enforceable uniform guidelines. Stellar Development vision is to put in roughly $300,000 homes in the area, no lot crowding. So the statement of 4.6 homes per acre is really not our intention. We intend to go with, actually, as you see in the concept drawing, a 28 or 2.8 homes per acre. We would like to embrace the residents' concerns for a serene and peaceful neighborhood. We like to preserve trees. And of course, we intend on working with the City of Temple on a master plan for the entire area for sewer and water for that general area. First reading comments. Land use, as we recall, was presented that this area is really no longer an urban estate area. And I'd like to remind you that we did make a presentation that the wastewater and sewer is readily available in surrounding areas, and we presented a plan for that. And I have those slides as backup if you still want to see them again. The only concern, I believe, that we had last time was that there was a concern about traffic increase in the area, especially in Lakeview Lane, and that was presented by Mr. Mabry here earlier. And then there was a comment that the 46 additional lots in the area would, times 10, would increase it to 460 trips per day in that area. And so let me show you a couple of items here. If you look at the east side or the left side of that screen, there's a 10-acre plat shown there in blue. And I've also taken the liberty to show roughly the number of people that would go, if you look at the red dot there on the right side, they would go to that location as a total. And what I see, maybe you could argue there's more, and if you'd like, we would add the number to even 80 if you like. But the bottom line is 46 if you consider SF1 as being maxed out to 10 acres. Then we would have a worst-case scenario of, in that red dot area, of 76 total home servicing, or 760 trips per day. So by comparison, let me show you the next slide. These are subdivisions in the nearby vicinity, starting at the top left and going counterclockwise. We look at Brentwood with 180 homes servicing a local area street. And if you look at that, that would be 1,800 trips for that one small area compared to the 760. And if you look at the next one, counterclockwise to the left, you have it's Deerfield, 116 in the first phase of Deerfield, and 84 in Deerfield Creek Estates, or so roughly 200 total homes servicing one exit, which is also a local street. And so that would be 2,000 trips per day in that one little area. And keep on going, skip the area we're talking about to the right. You have Winham. They have 510 allowable lots that they're going to put in. I don't know their total structure, so we just guessed that they would have two ingress areas. So we just 510 divided by 255 homes on that one small area, or 2,550 total trips. And then finally, Echo Village to the far right, upper right, 385 homes with 3,850 trips on one small local street. So I hardly believe that, if we click again, that 460 may sound high if you're not thinking about the total numbers, but if you're looking at other areas, 3,850 or so trips per day in one small area is certainly a lot larger than 460. So I just don't see this general conclusion being that the traffic would be any concern at all. We're still saying 28 homes in this particular area. Furthermore, city is the general conclusion, city water and sewer is readily available in the area. We also, as a developer, Stellar Development has a reputable track record for superior developments. We have a commitment to lower density. We have a commitment to high-quality home building. And I'd like to turn your attention to our conceptual, it's really we're submitting a preliminary plat to the staff that will be exactly what you see in front of you. So within a time frame, the city would see this as a preliminary and probably the final plat as well at the same time. Plans, 28 lots, 2 cul-de-sac levels, lot sizes between 1/4 and 1/3 acre, highly restricted HOA. And the next slide is a very sensitive slide. I know we're in a public forum, but I've asked city staff to erase this after our meeting. But it gives us a little bit of a glimpse of why Stellar Development Company will follow a very high integrity in this concept of 28 homes for this area. We would be cutting off our nose to spite the face if we didn't. And here it is. It's if it responds, there we go. Is this whole area, the area that you see is what we're calling Highland Park. We have control of much of the area, and we're looking at expanding this area fully. Of course, we need to work with staff in a very deep manner to have a master plan for this, but our concept is to follow out in the direction generally shown. I know it doesn't follow what is considered as the city's thoroughfare plan, but we just don't see that as possible at the moment, so we're putting a loop in there. However, the point being is that we have a vested interest in the future, and so therefore let me go back. Petitioner's request is essentially, we are requesting a zoning change as is noted in your agenda, but we are also committing to a density of 3 or less for this project as has been submitted. The final comment is, if we want to talk about plan development, there's a few rules in there that we didn't commit to, and well, I'll just talk about those, I guess, that add multiple clauses that weren't in our original discussion. For example, we call PD, and I asked the attorneys to send us over a sample of what it would do. Calls for additional council review at any time desired. Calls for additional public hearings if any substantive changes for the plat, and actually has a 2-year shelf life. And just to prove the point, this thing is not responding quite well. There we go. The plan development ordinance will only require further planning and zoning commission city's council review of specific elements of a plan development due to sensitivity of surrounding areas. So essentially, it's a vague and maybe open area, so the city can say at any time, gee, we think we need to call another meeting. 7505, it says in highlighted in yellow, etc., you can read there, which are substantive shall require public hearings, and that's a future thing. And then the final one says that if it's basically gives a 2-year limit, and so those things we didn't sign up to. However, we're ready to submit to a PD if necessary. I just don't see that that's really a necessity. We are committed to a density of 3 or less for this project. We are about ready to submit the preliminary and final plat within a week's time frame, and we're therefore respectfully asking council to vote in favor of the zoning change as is submitted in your package. And that's my presentation. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Control. Go ahead. Question?
I do have a question, because I had a pretty good feeling after the last meeting when we talked about the plan development, and then after reading this, and granted, I realize that that there are 3 things that you were uncomfortable with, but on the same token, I would be uncomfortable because you could decide that you wanted to just build 46 houses, even though we've already been through this. It concerns me a little bit, because I came away from the last meeting thinking that we were going to have something that would not only make me personally feel better, but I think also the current
homeowners in the area. And I appreciated your traffic studies from the other areas, but those were actually new developments that you were pointing out that were getting so much traffic. They knew going into it what it was going to be like. And it bothers me that at the last minute I feel like what I had originally voted on is not quite what we're getting now.
May I respond?
Sure, certainly.
I agree. When I left the meeting, I felt like I was leaving with, hey, we're doing SF1 and all I need to do is submit a plat. I didn't understand when I got down to the nitty-gritty, all the legalese says you got to do A, B, C, D extra. So there's a two-way street here. At some point in time, we're members long-standing in the community, such as yourself, and at some point in time, we have to have a certain amount of trust with each other that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. Of course, everybody wants their piece of the pie on paper, so we know exactly what we're going to do, right? So if it makes you feel more comfortable and you would like to vote to go to PD SF1, then we're not averse to that. We would like to proceed with our plans. I just didn't see any need for that. We believe that we're going to go with a density of 3 or less, and we're moving with that very quickly. If you, as the council members, collectively believe you should go ahead and change it to PD SF1, we believe that's okay. I'm just trying to point out, one, the traffic study, or the comment that was made last council meeting was essentially a pie out of the sky kind of number that says we feel like it's too high. And I just believe if you look at the surrounding areas, yeah, you can compare, oh, that's a new subdivision, they knew exactly. But what we're talking about is relative density and relative traffic within a specific, very small area. And my point to that is that it really is not high. However, we're even going lower than that. If you think about it, we're going only 280 trips, 28 homes times 10 through that small area. Of course, you're saying it could go to 46, but we're not going to do that. Vote as you feel. If you need to go to PDSF1, we're not averse to that. But I think what's on the docket is SF1, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the attorney can help us on that.
Council can make a motion on that.
That's my
We heard what you said.
Any other questions?
Anything else from Mr. Rendon?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Council, is there a desire to make a motion on this item?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I guess I would comment. I mean, there is no doubt this is going to be a residential area. The disparity comes in from the comprehensive plan of what size and what size the lots and the density of the housing that would be in there. And I guess from the practical sense, when you look at other subdivisions in the area that are also SF1, including another one of Mr. Rendon's that has lower densities. And the densities, I guess I would argue, that are probably driven by the economics of it all, of what's sellable in the marketplace. I am comfortable because of Las Colinas and Creeks at Deerfield, and I believe, can't remember the name, Chief Wallace, what's the name of your subdivision? Springwood Creek. I believe that's also SF1. I'm personally comfortable with changing the zoning on this to SF1, or achieving the SF1 zoning, and knowing full well that here's an intended plat that's coming through, and so we have a chicken and an egg situation here of not all appearing at the same time. I guess I would be willing to give Mr. Rendon the benefit of the doubt, and I would make a motion that we approve item 7 as SF1.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the request for rezoning from agriculture to SF1. My only concern would be an element of distrust and the what if, and I think there's a long-standing record of a PD being put forward, accepted in different areas, and they're not brought back and changed willy-nilly and, at the council's whim or planning and zoning's whim. So you're exactly right, Mr. Rendon. There's got to be an element of trust. And my concern of the element of trust would be not of you per se, but that if somebody comes along somewhere along the line and makes you an offer you can't refuse, and all of a sudden somebody else ends up with this property, and they've got an SF1 zoning, and they see things differently. They see the opportunity to put 46 houses in there because they've got a piece of land that's got SF1 zoning. So I would say the trust goes both ways. So if you want to, if you're willing to accept a PD, and I understand there's a motion and a second for the SF1, that you'd be willing to have accepted the PD or willing to accept a PD. And I just say that would have given us an element of protection to make us feel comfortable. So that said, there's a motion. Is there further discussion?
If I could just reiterate what you said, it's not that, I know that y'all are very reputable, and it's not what is before us now, it's what could possibly happen in the future. And in fact, I believe I made the motion last time, and I felt the motion that I made, I felt was that of a good compromise for it. But anyway,
I too thought we were coming back with the PD on this second hearing, and I would love to see this thing built out as you've shown. I mean, I think this is probably one of the most beautiful areas left in the city of Temple for an upper level development. And whether the thoroughfare plan happens the way we show it or the way you show it, those are just lines on a map. So however that works out, man, I would love to see this developed out that way. And whether we choose to change this whole thing from urban estates to SF1s throughout that thing or not, or if the council's desire or P&Z's desire is to see this kind of treated until we see a fully developed area, that we see it, that let's address each one of these as they come along. So let's leave it urban estates and let's look at them and see, because there are some issues of traffic, and this, as it becomes more and more dense, it becomes more and more of an issue. Your argument or your comment and the presentation relative to the entry points and density was very well taken. Very good presentation on that one.
Mr. Mayor, if in hearing all those words and the feelings, if Mayor Pro Tem is willing to withdraw her second, I will withdraw my motion and restate it that we approve this as SF1 PD.
And if you're in agreement, then do we have a motion to change this to single-family district plan development from agriculture? Is there a second?
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion or comment? We clear? Everything okay? Jonathan?
Did I withdraw?
Yes.
Did you?
I'm
I
sorry.
didn't say a word.
Oh, the proper procedure would have been for an amendment to the motion.
We know it's going to be housing out there. It's just a matter of of the density and however we can achieve that and what's the practical way of doing that is, in my opinion, the way we should proceed.
So what we could do is, and it doesn't require an amendment, or for her to withdraw her second, if she consider that, is make an amendment to the motion, then we vote on the amendment, and if the amendment fails, then you go back to the original motion. So
Unless she cares to withdraw.
So then,
Unless she cares to withdraw.
I'll withdraw my second that I just threw out there.
Well, yeah. So we've got a motion for an SF1. Is there a
Robert's rules say, let's do that.
Does someone wish to make a motion to amend?
I would make a motion to amend.
Okay, is there a second to that?
To
amend to a PDSF1.
To PDSF1.
Is there a second? So we have a second. So now we're going to vote on the amendment. And so, is there further discussion? Everybody clear on that piece? Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna.
No.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. So that amendment passes. So now we go back. Now we go back and vote on that motion, which is now to have a PDSF1 designation for that zoning.
Yes, sir.
And so, is there further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna.
Tell me what we're doing now, the original
We're voting on it.
SF1?
No, we're voting on a PDSF.
Oh,
Is
no.
that amendment passed?
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Rundle. Next item is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a zoning change from two-family district and general retail district to planned development general retail district on lots 4 through 6 and 10 through 12, Block 5, Eugenia Terrace Addition, located at 1510 South First Street. Mr. Mabry.
Thank you, sir. This proposal is for a potential Family Dollar here in the TMed area. The current property is currently occupied by a motel, the Lamar Motel. It is zoned both general retail and two-family. There was grant money approved by City Council recently to fund some enhanced amenities to the site that would make it more in line with the proposed TMed standards. Just as a reminder, I know all of you are pretty well aware of this. The TMed goal is to have a walkable, mixed-use, more urban area. The grant that you approved at your most previous recent hearing was $65,250 for this site. The plan development and the grant, as we kind of discussed in the previous case, provides some certainty that what is proposed to be built will actually be built. Here's an aerial of the subject property. It's at South First Street and Avenue P, and also it's kind of harder to see that South 3rd Street also runs right behind the building. Some of the surrounding property uses are shown on the screen. The VA hospital is to the east across First. There is a vacant barn and a duplex to the south of the subject property. Single-family residential, several of those units are to the west across the street, across 3rd Street, and then a tire shop and some single-family dwellings are to the north across R. And I need to switch the pictures to show the duplex that's to the south and some of the houses that are across Avenue R. The future land use and character map shows that this area is well within the TMed area. South First Street is an arterial, while West Avenue P and South 3rd are local streets. A 12-inch water line and a 6-inch sewer line serve the property. The citywide trails master plan has an effect on the property. The citywide spine trail runs in front of the property along First, which is a 10 to 12-foot sidewalk, and that is addressed in the plan development drawing that I'll soon show you. The two-family portion of the property is to the rear, as you can see on the screen there. There's, along First, most of the properties are zoned some form of commercial zoning, whether it's GR or heavy industrial, and then the VA is actually zoned multifamily 1. And then to the rear of the property, it's mostly two-family, although the actual houses that are built there tend to be single-family dwellings. This is the plan development site plan for the case, and I'll go over a few of the important aspects of that with you. There's a 10-inch sidewalk along the front, and I'll orient you. This is First Street, where the cursor is hovering. Avenue P is down here, and 3rd Street is over here to the rear. There's a 10-foot sidewalk along First, a 6-foot sidewalk along Avenue P and along 3rd Street. There are 3-inch caliper street trees planted 25 feet on center around the perimeter of the site. As you can see, here along the front and along Avenue P, and then they are really closer than 25 feet with this triangulation that you see here along 3rd Street. The parts of the property that aren't covered with the trees are to have Asian jasmine on them. I just have a sample picture of what that looks like, just so you know what I'm talking about there on the upper right. Part of TMED is to have minimal parking in the front in order to create a more pedestrian-oriented environment, and so there's what we've called in the various documents we've been working with TMED teaser parking along the front, and then another bay row of parking here on this side of the building that's more to the side and even less intrusive. There will be a solid hedge row to screen the teaser parking along the front, along 1st Street as well. And as you can see, the building is built quite close to the Avenue P property line. This is what we call a build-to design, where instead of having a minimum setback that it has to be set back from that property line, the building is brought closer to the street in order to add to the walkability of the sidewalk, so that there's the awnings overhanging the sidewalk there that would add to the walkability of the area. These are the elevations that are part of this particular plan development submittal. Again, the awnings provide shade and visual interest, especially along Avenue P. There are real and faux windows along P and 1st Street to break up the blank wall effect and to just make it feel better when you're walking along that side of the building. People generally tend to feel more comfortable walking when there's more interest to the wall that they're walking along, instead of just a solid blank wall for a really long distance. The actual draft TMED requirements require 2 stories for this part of town, and if it were an adopted set of standards, we would have to hold the applicant to this standard. But as part of the plan development negotiation, we've worked with him to instead have 1 story and then a faux 2nd story, so that you're getting a little closer to having the 2-story look, but not a usable 2nd story. It would be more of a parapet there in the front. And then the building materials are to be limestone, soapstone, and plaster along those 1st and P and along the north side of the building. The rear of the building along 3rd will be masonry as well, but and it will be painted to match the color of the front and the sides, but it doesn't have to be the limestone and the soapstone and plaster. 18 notices were mailed out for the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing that took place, and 3 people sent in agreements for this proposal, and no one sent in disagreements. So on October 4th, 2010, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 8-0 for approval of this plan development from GR and 2F to Plan Development GR, including that binding site development plan and elevations with the following stipulations. Except as modified by the binding site development plan, the use and development standards for the property conform to the requirements of the GR zoning district. If there's a conflict between the site development plan and the actual text of the plan development ordinance that gives approval to the property, then the stricter standard applies. The number 3 has to do with the street trees along 1st, which is a TxDOT road, in which we are still working with TxDOT to have a more coordinated street tree planting scheme along South 1st. Notwithstanding what is shown, or regardless of what is shown on the site development plan, street tree placement along South 1st is subject to approval by TxDOT, but in no case will a reduction in the number of trees adjacent to any public right-of-way be reduced as a result of TxDOT policy. So some spacing might be different than what is shown, but the net number of trees you're getting can't be reduced. And then 1 monument sign and no other freestanding sign type is allowed on the property as depicted on the site development plan. And if built, they don't have to build it, but if they're going to have a monument sign, it has to be a maximum area of 50 square feet and a maximum height of 4 feet. And that is shown back here on the plan, here down close to the intersection of P and South 1st. So with that, I would be open to answering any questions that the council might have on this case.
Thank you, Mr. Mabry. Council, questions on this item? It's first reading and then a public hearing. If there are no questions from council, I'll declare the public hearing open. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of this zoning change.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion is second for approval of the zoning change as presented. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 9 is a first reading and a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit allowing a package store with alcoholic beverage sales for off-premise consumption on the south one-half of Lot 1, Block 292-1, Temple Original at 1 North 6th. And this item, it has a note here, approval of this item will require 4 affirmative votes of the council because this most recent comes before us with denial from Planning and Zoning Commission. So that means a unanimous vote of the council this evening since we just have 4 members.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mabry.
This proposal is for a package store on property that's zoned central area. As a recap of the timeline a little bit, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 to deny the previous proposal. Before that, council took no action due to the lack of a second, and then at the most recent time that was on your agenda, the applicant requested that the item be tabled until some parking issues could be finalized, as some off-site parking that was across the alley was going to be in place, but then it was withdrawn by the other property owner. And so now some steps have been taken by the applicant to be under contract to buy the duplex that is next door that you can just catch a glimpse of here on the photo on the PowerPoint screen, to purchase the duplex, to demolish it, and to provide parking on that site. There was some documentation as part of your packets that showed the contract and an earnest money check and things of that nature that shows some the efforts made by the applicant to end up buying the property. Just a reminder, the separation distance is about 430 feet to the nearest church, which is along Adams Avenue. The main point that I want to show you on this slide, on this kind of abbreviated presentation, is that the duplex to the north, just as a reminder, this is the property that is in question to be purchased and demolished in order to provide the parking. The owner of the duplex I've seen in the audience and who was originally opposed to the idea of the package store, but has submitted in writing to you a change in his mind and is now supporting this proposal. This is the newly revised site plan showing the parking where the duplex currently sits. That is there on the drawing on the screen. There are 11 parking spaces shown that are 9 by 18, which is adequate for the proposed package store. The drive aisle that you can see there is 32 feet in width, which meets our standards. There's, in addition to the landscaping along Central and Central and 6th, there is an additional landscaping strip proposed along the left-hand side of the building. There, about 100 feet long by 5 feet wide. And then I just wanted to point out the driveway onto the parking lot would be 23 feet in width and would generally line up with the driveway that's across the street to the large vacant public parking area. There are conditional use permit criteria that the zoning ordinance sets out for your consideration when you're looking at approving a conditional use permit for a package store or for any other use that requires a package store. Number 1 is often the one that is most related to the negative comments that we get back from surrounding property owners about potentially not being compatible with surrounding property or being injurious to the use and enjoyment of surrounding properties in the vicinity. There were 10 notices mailed for the most recent Planning and Zoning Commission meeting 5 are in agreement, and as you can see again, the property, duplex property owner is being shown as in agreement with the proposal on the screen, and 2 are in disagreement with the proposal, as marked by the the red Ds on the screen. Staff policy is not to recommend approval or denial for package stores, just to give you the facts and give you the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation, which was at its August 2nd, 2010 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 for denial of this case. And so, again, as the mayor mentioned, a unanimous vote for approval is required in order for this conditional use permit to be approved by the council. And now I can answer any questions that you might have on this case.
Thank you, Mr. Mabry. And again, unanimous because there's only 4 of us here tonight.
Yes.
Generally,
Right.
it would just be 4 or 5. So I think it's appropriate to point out that 7-0 P&Z vote was when there were basically no parking plan. They just basically didn't meet the requirements for the application, and
Yes, sir.
I think that was, as I read the minutes of the P&Z meeting, that was the reason that was denied unanimously by P&Z, or unanimously.
I think, I think a combination of that, but I also think, and the minutes reflect this from a commissioner or two about just the overall policy of where package stores should be located, but I think that those two were 2 of the big reasons why.
Other comments or questions?
Could you go back on your slide presentation to the new proposed plat?
Right, this is the new proposed CUP site plan.
So that's all new for everybody since the planning and zoning meeting back in August? Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So, and really, this is, the staff, the first time that we've, I guess, seen this. And so all the parking is now where the duplex is, and there's landscaping along Central Avenue.
Yes, that's correct. Central, to orient East Central is right here going, normally we think of it going east and west, but here it's up and down on the drawing just to be able to fit it, and North 6 is here toward the bottom of the screen.
So we're not relying on any pull-in parking at all off of Central Avenue?
No.
So that's a big change from what anybody has seen prior to this point.
And one of the problems that several people voiced was the fact that there was a residence next door, which this would certainly take care of that.
There was a concern of loitering or people walking in between the proposed package store and the duplex, and of course that concern disappears if the duplex is not there and parking is in its place.
Other questions or comments? Being none, this item requires a public hearing. I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments.
I'm Mike Grisham. I'm here for the owner of the property, for the applicant. I live in Belton. Just want to point out a couple of things. Removing the duplex removes the residents from a whole area of commercial property. It's going to improve, enhance the area tremendously from where it is now. And there's also another property next door to the duplex that I know the city is trying to get that cleaned up. So this would really clean up the whole area right there. The appearance would be greatly improved. Also, it'll add jobs to the community, and also increases the tax base for the city and the county and school taxes from what it currently is, which is really low. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Grisham. Good evening.
Hello, my name is John Mark Johnson. I have J&J Properties. I own the duplex. Wife can't be here. A lot of this is my wife talking to me. As a businessman, I was looking things at certain ways, but also going to see what may be good for the city. I have a residential duplex, and you start looking around, I'm the only one out there. There's all these commercial deals and empty lots and stuff, but probably the best bet is the residential isn't there. That will help the city be able to develop the whole thing. We get somebody coming in trying to put another business, I may be going back up here, saying, well, defending my tenants, that, well, we don't want this here. So maybe just the best to do this, to get the residential out of there, and allow the city to develop anything else that they want to commercially, because plus I've looked at it, well, I can't find any other houses in that part of downtown. And it would be selfish on my part because you allow the city to develop. Plus, if you see in my package, I don't pay very much in property taxes, and the city revenues will be a whole lot more than the property tax I'm paying in property taxes that Mrs. Thomas is paying, and plus her building won't be vacant. I'll just cry a little bit if they tear the building down, so we'll go on there in this business. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing no one else wishing to speak, I'll just ask the council as we make a motion if there are other concerns, and because in the fact that we are like one council member this evening, if there's a concern and you think it would be in the best interest of the applicant to have a full council here, certainly entertain a motion to table at this point, but if not, then I'll entertain a motion at your pleasure on the first reading of this item.
The applicant has certainly, or plans to certainly adhere to all the requirements for the package store in this building, and I think it's time that we go ahead and vote on this, and I move that we approve this first reading.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion and second for approval of the item as presented. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Item 10 is a two-part item, but there's three parts within the second part. So let me just read through these, and we'll go through them. First one is just to consider a resolution adopting the 2022 master plan of the tax increment financing reinvestment zone number 1. And item B is going to be public hearings and first readings. First, to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the expansion of the boundary of the tax increment financing reinvestment zone number 1. Number 2 is consider adopting the ordinance extending the life of the tax increment financing reinvestment zone number 1. And part 3 is to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing amendments to the tax increment financing reinvestment zone number 1 financing plan and project plan to align with the 2022 master plan. Who will start off with this one?
I'll start off, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and council, and appreciate the opportunity to comment on this item, and really introduce the item, and then let Mr. Graham and Ms. Bernard make some comments also on the multiple items associated with it. Mayor and council, in 1982, the city and really many of the partners in the city took what I think was a very bold and visionary step in creating a tax increment finance zone. That step has proved over the years to be one of, if not the most significant action taken, in my opinion, relative to economic development in this community. And I'm going to read a statement here from the amended plan in just a second, but it's been a very, very significant action. The Board of Directors for the Tax Increment Finance Reinvestment Zone number 1, or what we refer to in shorthand as the RZ, recently completed a year-long study to develop a new master plan for the zone. The proposed 2022 master plan is the most significant revision of the master plan in more than a decade. An executive summary has been included within your packet. The master plan is a planning guide for projects and infrastructure improvements within the boundaries of the zone for its remaining life, which takes it currently to 2022, but the master plan makes some recommendations relative to that also. The master plan attempts to prioritize projects, identify probable costs associated with those projects. During this year-long process, there were multiple stakeholders and entities consulted and provided input, valuable input to the process. On the first page of the executive summary of the plan, it lists entities like the Bioscience Institute, the Veterans Administration, Patriot Rail, the Belton Independent School District, Temple Independent School District, the Temple College, the Airport Board, the Parks and Leisure Board, Scott and White Hospital, the Temple Downtown Development Association, and that's really just to name a few. In the course of that year, over the year, there have been multiple entities, including the ones I just listed, that have provided very valuable input to the board as they update this plan. The last comment I would make relative to just an overview statement, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Graham. Well, next to the last comment. This is from the first, I think it's the opening paragraph in the update to the plan, but I think it merits reading at least a portion of it. The City of Temple Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone has proven to be an extremely powerful catalyst in developing the economic base for the city. During the life of the zone, the TERS has funded development projects that have attracted business growth in heavy industrial, manufacturing, distribution, advanced medical and bioscience technologies, rail, and other industries. And I'll just stop there, but you can read through the plan, as I know you've had an opportunity to do so, and see that not only have what we invested in yielded benefits and fruit, but the plan document, again, has been, as the statement says, probably the catalyst for economic development in the community since 1982. With that, I want to recognize a few folks that are in the audience that also had a significant role, and some that are not here. I think the current chairman of the Reinvestment Zone Board, Bob Browder, is here. Steve Bright, who is also a member of the Reinvestment Zone Board representing TISD. Am I missing another board member? Might be here. I don't see other board members, but there are several board members that have worked really over the course of really more than a year almost associated with this. Probably also like to point out Mr. John Keela, who is the project committee chair, who really served as also a catalyst and a shepherd for this project for many, many meetings of project committee as they worked on this document also. And then I'd also like to point out the consulting engineering firm that helped a great deal in putting all of this together. And there was probably more than one draft or two that we went through as we went through this process, and I appreciate their work on that. But KPA, David Patrick, also was very instrumental in assisting us and working with us on this project. Be happy to, at this point, like what I think what I'd like to do, Mayor, is turn it over to Jonathan, and then I think he's going to allow Tracy to make some comments, and then we'll be happy to address any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. Mr. Grant?
Thank you, David, and Mayor and Council. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and talk about the next two items. Both of these items really came out of this year-long study and are recommendations contained in the master plan that you're considering in item A, and are both recommendations of your Reinvestment Zone Board as well. The first item relates to the expansion of the boundaries of the Reinvestment Zone. Under state law, we have authority to expand the boundaries of the Reinvestment Zone, and in doing so, we are doing so only for the city's own increment. So we, like the other taxing entities, participate in the zone, and when you expand the boundaries of the zone, you are committing the city's increment at 100% for the increased value taxes that you levy on that increased value. Just to kind of give a little more background for those who may not be familiar with tax increment financing, taxpayers in reinvestment zones continue to pay their full levy of taxes. They're not affected that way, but it's a commitment by the city to use those taxes within the boundaries of that zone or related to the zone to build infrastructure. And it's been, for the last 30 years since it was created, one of our primary, or the primary, economic development tool in the city. So to expand the reinvestment zone, you are required to do certain things that are contained in the ordinance you have before you. One of them is that you have to make certain findings about this area. The committee's work and the master plan identified it as an important area because it's our TMED area. We have two of our largest employers in the city there. We have our educational institution, Temple College there. It's an important gateway into the downtown area, but they recognized in that area that there were certain needs in that area, and some of the property needed to be developed. There was needed infrastructure. And so one of the recommendations in the master plan is for some projects in that area. And to do that, we have to incorporate that area within the reinvestment zone. So by law, to do that, you're making findings that there are factors in the area like substandard structures, and there are some. There are inadequate streets and sidewalks and things like that. So those findings are in the ordinance for you. There are certain restrictions on what areas can be incorporated within a reinvestment zone or added to the existing one, like we are. And one of those is that it cannot contain more than 15% of the appraised value of all the taxable real property in the city for the city's levy, or the same question for Bell County or the 3 school districts that make that up. So working very hard with the Finance Department and the Bell County Appraisal District, we've gone through a lot of calculations and determined that this proposed area does meet those requirements, and so that is another finding in the ordinance that we meet that criteria. The final criteria says that when you're adding an area, that it cannot be more than 10% residential, and we've also calculated that, and we are just under that. We're about 9%. So we meet those criteria, and if you make those findings about the condition of the property, you can add this area. And again, when we add it, we're adding it only for the city. We know that by law, the school district, there's only one school district of the 3 that are part of the zone that actually levy taxes in the TMED area that we're proposing to add. Can levy, or it's only TISD that levies taxes, and we know by law they are not going to participate in this area. They're really prohibited from doing so. So as far as the other taxing entities, if you adopt this, we will be going to them, and as you know, Mayor, the committee members and staff have been meeting with those taxing entities, educating them on this process, and we will be asking the other taxing entities like Temple College and Bell County to participate as well, and they'll have that decision whether to participate and at what level. So we will, after, depending on your action, we'll proceed with that. We've got a map, Alan, just to kind of show you. I think this first map he's going to pull up will show you, that's the area that we're proposing to add. That is the TMED area, and it connects, we'll get both of those there. That first map, the blue areas are the existing reinvestment zone. It includes the northwest area, what everybody thinks of as an industrial park. It continues down to the southeast where we have a second industrial park, and then has the downtown area, and they're all connected by narrow bodies of land. We're also proposing to add this TMED area, and it would be connected to the southeast industrial park along the railroad there. So again, I'll answer any questions you might have about that, but that is our recommendation. And I just would like to echo David's comments as well about the staff. This has been more than a year's worth of work. The staff's worked hard, but I've never seen boards work harder. There have been a lot of 7 o'clock meetings, project and financing committee meetings, the full board, and a lot of input from major taxpayers in the community, and I salute their work, and we do recommend this. It's been recommended by the board, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about this item. The second related item deals with the life of the reinvestment zone. It's also a recommendation. By law, the ordinance that adopted the original reinvestment zone back in 1982 set a life for it, and it set a life of 40 years. So it's due to expire at the end of December in 2022. And one of the recommendations is to extend that life. Recently, the legislature in the last session passed a change to the tax code that allows cities and counties that have reinvestment zones to extend the life of that zone. Before, you can only shorten it, now we can extend it. And because this is the primary economic development tool for the city, the board and the master plan recommend extending the life of the zone for an additional 40-year term from 2022. So that is our recommendation. And again, as with the expansion of the boundaries, when you do so, you're only doing so for the city's increment, but we will be going to the other taxing entities and asking them to participate as well. So I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Ms. Bernard?
Yes. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Alan, could you pull up that presentation, please? I do have a short presentation on the proposed financing plan amendment and project plan amendment. The period covered by the amendment covers 13 years through the life of the existing zone through FY 2022. Again, this amendment aligns with the master plan that was presented. Total source of funds through the next 13 years total $83 million. The composition of those source of funds, number one is tax increment within the existing boundaries of the reinvestment zone. It includes the 8 taxing entities. Total increment is estimated at $69.6 million. Assumptions used to calculate project the increment was a 1% growth factor. It was based on the 2011 certified roll, and it also includes adding back expiring abatements and adding no new growth to the increment. We also include in the source of funds what's referred to as an acronym PILOT, that's payment in lieu of taxes. It's an amendment to a current economic development agreement of $4.6 million. Those funds will be reserved for future debt service. Other miscellaneous revenues of $1 million, and then we had beginning fund balance of close to $7.8 million to allocate. The source of fund and use of funds were allocated, the $83 million, $46 million is to cover outstanding debt, current debt service. We have operating expenditures close to $11 million. Those include general road maintenance, railroad maintenance, and marketing of the current and expanded zone. And we also have total projects close to $26 million. It's allocated through 2022. Just a listing of our current outstanding bonds. All of those mature and they on or before 2022. And as of October 1, 2010, total outstanding was $33.9 million. Just going through the project list over the next 13 years, and this is sorted in descending order. For year, there's generic public improvements of $13.9 million. Those are for years 2016 through 2022. We have, and this is presented in project area. We have TMED investment of $4,780,000. North Zone Rail Park, close to $2 million. Downtown improvements of $1,442,000. Outer Loop, which is considered from Woodland Road to IH-35 North, $1.2 million. The recent pass-through financing application that was approved, the zone is making a contribution or matching funds to that of $930,000. You see Airport Park, the Bioscience Park, and Synergy Park. Again, those projects that are programmed total close to $26 million. That's kind of a big overview summary. I'd be happy to answer any questions related to either the project plan or the financing plan.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Questions for anyone, Jonathan, David, or Tracy on the plan?
Mayor, can I make just a couple of quick comments also?
Absolutely, of course.
I recognized Mr. Bowder and Mr. Wright, but Tracy passed me a note, and appropriately, that I probably should also mention at least the other members of the project committee, and that's what Jonathan was referring to in terms of those 7 o'clock meetings over many months. But Gary Schmidt, Mike Thompson, were also involved in those project committee meetings and put in a lot of work, as did Ms. Bernard, Mr. Graham, and the work of their offices. So I'm very appreciative of those. And Jonathan made a reference to it in his comments, but we also want to make sure that you understand that this plan amendment comes to you with the recommendation of the Reinvestment Zone Board. And again, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. My only comment is to once again thank those, Bob Brower, Steve Wright, who are here, and those who have done so much work, and for those who may not be on the board any longer, but have nonetheless worked diligently through the history of the Reinvestment Zone. This is an amazing tool. What we have accomplished in this community in building and developing an industrial and expanding tax base has just been nothing short of incredible. And this thought of extending this for another 40 years is it is an amazing feeling to know that we can continue this type of economic engine and development forward for well beyond probably what any of us sitting in this room, save the youngsters, may get to see. It's a great opportunity, and I'm very excited for what it can bring to the city of Temple. So the first item is 10A. Does not require a public hearing. That's the resolution, just merely adopting the 2022 master plan. And then item B, all three of those items require a public hearing. So let's do the public hearing for item B, if you don't mind, council, and then we can take items A and B together separately as you wish. And of course, any of the three items under B can be handled separately. But for now, let's take 10B, 1, 2, and 3, public hearings relating to the adopting of the ordinance authorizing the expansion of the boundary of the tax increment financing reinvestment zone, number 1. B2 is to consider adopting the ordinance extending the life of the reinvestment zone. And item 3 is an adoption of the ordinance authorizing amendments to the tax increment zone financing plan to align with the 2022 master plan. I'll declare the public hearing open at this time. Anyone wishing to speak before the council on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record prior to making your comments. Mr. Browder.
Good evening. I'm Greg Browder, and I live at 4141 Briarcliff Road. And I'm here tonight speaking on behalf of the Reinvestment Zone's chairman of the Reinvestment Zone. And thanks, Steve, for being here. Steve is vice chairman of the zone. And this past year, it has been a great, there's reference that's going into this, but it's been an exciting time. If you look back on the master plan that was adopted well over 10 years ago, those projects were completed and accomplished. That's what's exciting about this plan, is it's being adopted. You can look forward to the next 12 years. The zone develops real projects. To take the concepts, take the pretty pictures, develop into executable projects. There's funding there to move them forward, and they are the engine that drives infrastructure economic development. So I want to thank the staff, the leadership of the city, the staff. The 7 o'clock meetings may not be the most popular meetings, but they're really productive, and we get a lot done, and they were literally, 2 to 3 meetings at least every month, hours of time, and then hours outside of that. Thank you for the staff who dedicated and the hard work that was done, not only in the meetings, preparation for meetings, but beyond. I know that Tracy and Jonathan, the work that you had to do in the preparation tonight was many, many hours. Thank you very much. It's a great document. It's a great product we can all be proud of, and it comes with a complete recommendation from the board, and respectfully request that you adopt the plan.
Great.
Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. Questions, Mr. Browder? Thank you. Thank you for your leadership, sir. Appreciate it. Mr. Wright? Or are you just getting up to let him back in? Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak before the council? Seeing no one wishing to speak, I'll declare those 3 public hearings closed. And council, your pleasure on items 10A and 10B, 1, 2, and 3. First reading.
Motion to approve both 10A and B, 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? There being none, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. And thanks to staff. You guys put an incredible amount of time in for reinvestment zone work. And thanks to the three of you for all that you do, and Clydette as well. She serves as the recording secretary for the reinvestment zone. So the entire executive team is involved in that and much, much more. So thanks. Item 11 is resolution. Consider adopting a resolution authorizing a Chapter 380 grant agreement with Jimmy Palasoda for redevelopment improvements at 500 West Avenue G in the Avenue G and H Strategic Investment Zone corridor in the amount not to exceed $27,500 plus waiver of permit fees. Ms. Faust.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Tonight before you is the 11th grant that you will be providing through our incentive program for the strategic investment zones. This particular project is in our Avenue G and H area at 500 West Avenue G. It's located cat-a-corner from Martha's Kitchen, which is at the corner of 9th and Avenue G. It is currently known as the Ramona Business Center. Its current use is a business center, and also it contains multifamily units. The grant request is from Jimmy Palasoda. He is proposing that all of the improvements would be made by the end of next May. It is likely that those improvements would be finished earlier. And the improvements are in the amount of $55,000. What's included in those improvements is stucco improvements in repair and paint, replacement and improvement of the facade, including wood, and various lighting improvements. He would also be doing a monument sign, installing landscaping, irrigation, and significant hardscape, along with other improvements such as doors. This is a matching grant program. He is eligible up to $15,000 for facade improvements, up to $10,000 for the hardscape and landscape, and $2,500 for the sign improvements, and also waiver of permits and fees. That would total a maximum of $27,500 that he would be eligible for on a one-to-one matching basis. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you, ma'am. Council, questions for Ms. Faust? This item doesn't require a public hearing, so I'll entertain a motion. It's your pleasure, Council.
Motion to approve item 11.
Second.
Motion is second for approval of the Chapter 380 agreement with Jimmy Palasoda for the redevelopment as indicated. If there's no further discussion, Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Dunn.
Aye.
Councilmember Jansen.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Luna.
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye. Okay.
Before we adjourn, tonight on the consent agenda, we approved the dual naming of South 34th Street with Myrtle Captain Street in honor of Myrtle Captain. Her daughter, Charmin Flakes, is here tonight. Do you want to say anything? No. Well, congratulations. It's well-deserved.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our council meeting for this evening. We are adjourned.